Hello my dear dreamers, welcome to our sanctuary of stories and enchantment. It's time to leave the waking world behind and venture into a realm where magic bubbles softly in ancient cauldrons and dragons whisper their timeless secrets beneath canopies of silver leaves. Ever wondered what ancient dragons whisper in the depths of a mystical forest? What if I told you that their secrets, combined with soothing ASMR sounds, could lull you into the most peaceful slumber you've ever experienced? Prepare to embark on a journey where bubbling elixirs and forgotten tales intertwine, promising ultimate relaxation. Tonight we find ourselves standing at the edge of the Whispering Woods, a place where reality softens at its borders and dreams begin to take root in the fertile soil of imagination. Take a deep breath with me now, and as you exhale, feel your shoulders dropping, your jaw loosening, your entire being settling into this moment of perfect tranquility. The forest before us is unlike any you have encountered in the waking world. Here, at the threshold between day and twilight, the trees seem to lean toward one another as if sharing secrets that have been passed down through countless seasons. Their leaves, not quite green and not quite silver, catch what little light filters through the canopy above, creating a gentle luminescence that requires no sun, no moon, only the inherent magic that permeates every root and branch of this sacred place. Listen closely now, and you will hear it, the softest rustling like silk drawn across smooth stone, as the leaves respond to a breeze you cannot quite feel, but somehow sense. It is a sound that speaks directly to something ancient within you, a memory perhaps from childhood, or maybe from something older still. A time when your ancestors gathered around fires and told stories of the wild places where magic still dwelt. Beneath that rustling, there flows another sound, delicate and crystalline. Water trickling over smooth river stones somewhere deeper in the forest, its voice a gentle melody that seems to rise and fall in rhythm with your own breathing. The sound draws you forward, inviting you to follow its song deeper into the woods, where the trees grow closer together and the air itself seems to shimmer with possibilities. As we venture further along the moss-covered path, the ground beneath our feet is wonderfully soft, centuries of fallen leaves creating a carpet that silences our footsteps. Each step releases a faint earthy fragrance, the scent of growing things in ancient soil, of mushrooms hidden beneath logs and wildflowers that bloom only in shadows. This is a smell that cannot be captured in any bottle, for it is the essence of life itself, of cycles of growth and rest, of seasons turning in their eternal dance. The soft glow you noticed earlier grows more pronounced as we walk. It seems to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once, as if the very air holds light within it the way morning mist holds moisture. Fireflies drift lazily through the spaces between trees, their luminescence a pale gold that pulses in gentle rhythm, creating a natural light show that requires no audience, performing simply because it is their nature to do so. Here and there, mushrooms grow in fairy rings upon the forest floor, their caps dotted with spots that seem to glow with their own inner light. Some are the colour of cream, others a deep burgundy that darkens to nearly black at their centres. If you were to touch one, and we shall not, for such things deserve their peace, you would find its surface cool and slightly damp, with a texture like the finest velvet ever woven. The trees themselves are magnificent beyond description, though I shall attempt it nonetheless. Their trunks are wide enough that 3 people holding hands could not circle them, and their bark is deeply furrowed, creating patterns that could be read like ancient text, if only one knew the language. Some trunks are covered in moss of the most brilliant green, so vivid it seems almost unnatural, while others host delicate lichens in shades of grey and silver and palest yellow. Overhead, the canopy creates a ceiling of living green, but it is not a solid barrier. Instead, small gaps allow narrow beams of ethereal light to penetrate, creating pillars of illumination that seem substantial enough to touch. Dust motes dance within these beams, each particle catching the light and throwing it back in miniature sparkles, a galaxy contained within a single shaft of radiance. As we continue our journey deeper into the Whispering Woods, we begin to notice other inhabitants of this magical place. A small fox, its fur the colour of autumn leaves touched with frost, pauses in its travels to regard us with eyes that hold far more intelligence than any ordinary creature should possess. It tilts its head, considering, then decides we are no threat, and continues on its way, disappearing into the undergrowth with barely a sound. Birds call to one another from hidden perches, their songs not the harsh cries of crows or the piercing whistle of hawks, but something softer, more melodious. These are the voices of wood thrushes and hermit thrushes, of nightingales that sing not only in darkness, but in this perpetual twilight as well. Their melodies weave together, creating harmonies that seem almost composed, as if the birds themselves were conscious musicians, performing a symphony for the forest alone. The trickling water grows louder now, and soon we catch our first glimpse of its source. A stream, no wider than a person could leap across, winds its way between the trees, its surface catching and reflecting the ambient glow of the forest until it appears to be made of liquid light itself. The water is so clear you can count every pebble on its bed, each one smooth and round from centuries of patient caress by the current. At the stream's edge, broad-leafed plants grow in abundance, their foliage a deep, healthy green that speaks of rich soil and perfect growing conditions. Small white flowers bloom among the leaves, their petals so delicate they seem almost translucent, and from them comes a fragrance both sweet and subtle, like honey mixed with the first flowers of spring. It is here, beside this enchanted stream in the heart of the whispering woods, that we find what we have been seeking. Upon a flat stone, worn smooth by time and weather, sits a crystal goblet of such perfect clarity it seems to have been carved from a single piece of solidified starlight. The goblet catches the ambient glow of the forest and amplifies it, sending out small rainbows that dance across the nearby ferns and fallen logs. Beside the goblet rests a clay pitcher, unadorned but beautiful in its simplicity, with a shape that speaks of patient hands working at a potter's wheel, taking time to ensure every curve was exactly as it should be. The pitcher is covered with a cloth woven from threads so fine they might have been spun from spider silk, and this cloth is held in place by a cord of twisted grass, still green despite being cut from its roots. But it is what happens next that truly captures the essence of this magical place. From somewhere high in the canopy above, a single drop of water begins its descent. It is not rain, for there are no clouds in this eternal twilight. Instead, this is moonlit dew, collected by the leaves overnight and released now with perfect timing. The drop catches the light as it falls, becoming a tiny prism that splits illumination into its component colours, creating a momentary rainbow no larger than your smallest fingernail. The drop falls into the crystal goblet with the softest sound imaginable, a crystalline note that rings out clear and pure, like the striking of the smallest bell ever crafted. It is a sound that seems to hang in the air long after it should have faded, resonating with something deep within your chest, as if your own heart recognises this tone and wishes to match its rhythm to it. Another drop follows, and then another, each one making that same perfect sound, each one adding its voice to a slowly building symphony of liquid music. The drops fall with exact timing, neither hurrying nor hesitating, following a rhythm set perhaps at the birth of this forest, or maybe at the beginning of time itself. As the goblet begins to fill, the tone changes ever so slightly, growing deeper, richer as the water rises and the space within the glass diminishes. Within the goblet, the accumulated moonlit dew begins to shimmer with an inner luminescence, as if each drop carried not just water, but light itself, trapped and willing to be contained for a time. The liquid glows with a soft silver blue radiance, gentle enough that you could look directly at it without discomfort, yet bright enough to cast the faintest of shadows on the stone beneath. Small bubbles form within the water, though there is no heat to create them, no agitation to stir them into being. They simply appear, rising slowly from the bottom of the goblet to its surface, where they burst with tiny pops that add their own percussion to the music of falling drops. Each bubble catches the light as it rises, becoming a tiny sphere of captured radiance, a pearl made not of nulka but of pure luminescence. The forest around us seems to respond to this gathering of enchanted water. The fireflies draw closer, their pulsing lights synchronizing with the rhythm of falling drops. The birds fall silent, as if understanding that their songs would only distract from this more fundamental music. Even the breeze pauses in its endless journey through the trees, holding its breath so that every sound of water, finding water, can be heard with perfect clarity. As the goblet fills to within a finger's width of its rim, the drops cease their descent. The forest seems to exhale, releasing tension you had not realized had been building. The soft rustling of leaves resumes. The birds begin their songs once more, and the breeze picks up again, carrying with it scents of night-blooming jasmine and wild honeysuckle. The moonlit dew in the crystal goblet has taken on an almost solid appearance, as if the water has become denser, more substantial, through its gathering. It does not slosh or ripple despite the breeze that now moves across its surface. Instead, it sits perfectly still, perfectly calm, a mirror that reflects not the world above it but something deeper, something from within itself. Tiny motes of light drift within the liquid, stars captured and held willing, their microscopic brilliance adding depth to the simple water, transforming it into something far more complex and wondrous. If you were to lean close, you might imagine you could see entire constellations within that goblet, whole galaxies spinning in miniature, all contained within a vessel no larger than your cupped hands. This, then, is the first sparkling elixir, created not through any effort of ours, but through the patient magic of the forest itself. It is a gift freely given, collected from air and leaf, and the secret processes that occur in darkness when the moon watches over the sleeping world. This is water that has never known the touch of earth, that has been born in the sky and cradled by the trees, and it glows with a natural luminescence that speaks of purity and peace and the gentle magic that dwells in wild places. As we stand beside the stream, admiring the moonlit dew in its crystal goblet, movement catches our attention. Deeper in the forest, barely visible through the trees, a warm golden light flickers and dances, quite different from the cool silver luminescence that surrounds us here. This light speaks of fire, of controlled flame put to purposeful work, and it beckons us to investigate its source. We follow a narrow path that winds between ancient oaks and stands of silver birch, their white bark gleaming like bone in the perpetual twilight. The sound of the stream fades behind us, replaced by new sounds that grow clearer with each step. There is a gentle bubbling, soft and rhythmic, like the contented sounds a baby makes in sleep. Beneath that we hear the occasional clink of glass touching glass, delicate and precise, the sound of careful work being performed by steady hands. The golden light grows brighter as we approach, and soon we can see its source. In a small clearing, perhaps 20 paces across, a cauldron sits suspended over a fire that burns without consuming its fuel. The flames beneath the cauldron are not the angry red and orange of normal fire, but instead flicker in shades of blue and purple and deep green, colours that should not exist in any earthly blaze. These flames produce no smoke, no acrid smell of burning wood, only a gentle warmth that reaches out to embrace us as we enter the clearing. The cauldron itself is a marvel of craftsmanship, fashioned from copper that has aged to a rich patina of verdigris and rose gold. Its surface is not smooth, but instead covered with intricate engravings, patterns that seem to shift and change as the firelight plays across them. Here are depicted stars and moons and suns in their courses, trees with roots that reach deep and branches that touch the sky, and creatures both real and imagined, all intertwined in a design that tells a story without words. 3 legs support the cauldron, each one carved to resemble a dragon's limb, complete with scales and talons that grip the earth beneath. The dragon's legs are so detailed, you can see individual scales, each one no larger than your thumbnail, overlapping in perfect patterns that speak of the craftsman's patience and skill. The talons dig into the ground, and you notice that where they touch the earth, small flowers have begun to bloom, their petals the same copper colour as the cauldron itself. Around the clearing's perimeter, workbenches and shelving have been arranged with meticulous care. Upon these surfaces rest countless containers of every size and description. There are bottles of cobalt blue glass, their surfaces slightly rough from being hand-blown. Clay jars sealed with wax the colour of amber sit beside wooden boxes with brass hinges, and baskets woven from willow hold bundles of dried herbs tied with twine. Each container is labelled in a flowing script that seems to dance across paper tags, though the writing is in no language you immediately recognise. But it is not the containers that capture your attention for long. Instead, your eyes are drawn to what they contain. Through the blue glass bottles, you can see liquids that glow with their own inner light. One holds something that shifts between silver and gold, never quite settling on either colour. Another contains a deep purple substance that seems to hold tiny lightning storms within it, miniature flashes of light crackling through the liquid at irregular intervals. The clay jars, when opened by invisible hands that tend this place, reveal powders of every imaginable hue. Here is one the colour of ground rubies, so red it seems to pulse with contained energy. There is another the exact shade of the sky at twilight, that perfect blend of blue and purple and rose that exists for only moments before night falls completely. A third holds powder of such pure white it seems to generate its own light, illuminating the interior of the jar and casting a soft glow on whatever surface it sits upon. The wooden boxes, their lids lifted by the same unseen caretaker, contain solid ingredients that are no less wondrous than the liquids and powders. Small crystals catch the firelight and throw it back in 1,000 different directions, creating miniature light shows that dance across the walls of their containers. Dried flower petals, preserved so perfectly they might have been picked this very morning, fill one box nearly to overflowing, their colours still vibrant, their forms still intact. From the willow baskets comes the most wonderful array of scents. Lavender, dried to perfection, releases its calming fragrance when disturbed by the breeze. Rosemary, its needle-like leaves still green despite being cut from the plant, adds a sharp, clean scent that clears the mind and sharpens thought. Chamomile flowers, their small white petals surrounding golden centres, contribute a gentle apple-like aroma that speaks of peaceful afternoons and restful nights. But most wondrous of all are the ingredients that seem to have come from no earthly garden. In a small crystal box lined with black velvet rest, 3 berries, each one glowing with a soft internal light that pulses gently, like a heartbeat. The berries are the colour of Arctic ice under moonlight, a pale blue that seems almost white, yet definitely blue when you look at it from certain angles. Their surface is smooth and unblemished, and they seem to generate a faint mist that curls around them like protective fog. These are starfruit berries, gathered during the darkest part of the year from bushes that grow only on the highest mountain peaks, where the air is so thin that ordinary plants cannot survive. They are said to contain the essence of cold starlight, of those ancient suns that watch our world from distances so vast, the mind cannot properly conceive of them. To consume even one would grant a person perfect clarity of thought for a full day and night, though they are far too precious to be eaten casually, and instead are reserved for elixirs of particular importance. Beside the starfruit berries, in a container of its own, sits a small pile of what appears to be golden sand, though its gleam is too persistent, too bright to be any earthly mineral. This is stardust, not the poetic metaphor humans use when speaking of magical things, but actual dust collected from fallen stars. When a shooting star streaks across the night sky and disappears, it does not simply cease to exist. Instead it falls to earth in countless tiny fragments, most of them burned to nothing by their passage through the air, but a few, a precious few, surviving intact to be found by those who know where to look and what signs to watch for. The stardust holds within it all the heat and light an energy that Star contained during its endless voyage through the void of space. It radiates warmth even now, though it has been collected and contained for who knows how long. If you were to hold a single grain between your fingers, you would feel that warmth, gentle but persistent, like holding a spark that never quite goes out. Now the real work begins. From somewhere among the containers, a small silver trowel appears, floating through the air with no visible means of support, guided by intention rather than hand. It dips into the pile of stardust, scooping up perhaps a teaspoon's worth of the precious substance. The trowel floats over to the bubbling cauldron and tilts, releasing the stardust into the liquid already simmering within. The effect is immediate and spectacular. As the stardust touches the surface of the liquid in the cauldron, a fountain of golden sparks erupts upward, reaching nearly to the height of a person, before cascading back down like a miniature fireworks display. The sparks do not fade as they fall, but instead are reabsorbed into the liquid, their light and energy becoming part of the brew. The bubbling of the cauldron changes, becoming more vigorous, more enthusiastic. Large bubbles rise from the depths of the vessel, each one catching the firelight and reflecting it in rainbow patterns across its surface before bursting with soft pops that sound almost musical. The liquid itself begins to glow, taking on the same golden hue as the stardust, until the entire cauldron seems to be filled with captured sunlight. A wooden spoon, long and carved from a single piece of some pale wood that might be ash or perhaps birch, appears next. It too floats through the air, guided by the same invisible presence that controls the trowel. The spoon dips into the cauldron and begins to stir, moving in a clockwise direction with steady, even strokes that create a gentle whirlpool within the liquid. As the spoon stirs, the sound it makes is surprisingly musical. The wood sliding through the liquid creates a soft rushing sound, like wind through tall grass. The spoon occasionally taps against the side of the cauldron, and each tap produces a different note, as if the copper vessel were a great bell capable of many voices. Together these sounds create a simple melody, one that repeats with each circuit of the spoon through the liquid, building in layers until the clearing seems filled with music despite there being only these simple sounds. Next, the 3-star fruit berries are added to the mixture. They float across the clearing in their crystal box, which tips over the cauldron to release them. As each berry touches the golden liquid, it releases a burst of cold that you can feel even from where you stand, several paces away. The cold and the heat meet and swirl together, creating patterns of steam that rise from the surface of the liquid in graceful spirals. The berries do not sink into the liquid, but instead float on its surface, bobbing gently as the spoon continues its stirring. Slowly, they begin to dissolve, their pale blue colour leaching out into the gold of the stardust-infused liquid. Where blue meets gold, a new colour is born, a soft green that seems to shimmer and shift, never quite settling on a single shade, but instead flowing through every possible variation of green that could exist. The wooden spoon adjusts its rhythm, stirring faster now, creating more vigorous whirlpools that pull the dissolving berries deeper into the liquid. The bubbles grow larger and rise more frequently, and from each bubble as it bursts comes a puff of scented steam. The scent is complex and multi-layered, starting with the sharp cleanness of winter air at high altitude, then transitioning to something warmer and sweeter, like honey left to sit in sunlight, before finishing with a subtle undertone that brings to mind ancient forests and moss-covered stones. From a clay jar comes a handful of dried lavender, the purple flowers still attached to their stems. These are added to the cauldron with a flourish, the stems entering the liquid with a soft splash that sends up more steam and more of that complex, wonderful fragrance. The lavender immediately begins to release its oils into the brew, and the scent in the clearing becomes noticeably more calming, more soothing, the kind of smell that makes your shoulders relax and your breathing deepen without any conscious effort on your part. A sprinkle of powder the colour of twilight sky follows the lavender into the cauldron. This substance, whose name has been forgotten by all but the oldest trees, has properties that enhance dreaming. that help the mind release its grip on waking concerns and drift into the realm of sleep with ease and grace. As it touches the liquid, the powder begins to glow, not with the golden light of the stardust or the pale blue of the starfruit berries, but with a soft purple radiance that seems to deepen the longer you look at it. The stirring continues, patient and methodical, allowing each ingredient time to fully integrate with the others, to share its essence and properties until individual components can no longer be distinguished, and what remains is something entirely new, greater than the sum of its parts. The liquid in the cauldron has become something remarkable, a substance that shifts through a spectrum of colours as you watch. Now gold, now blue, now green, now purple, never settling, always in motion. Rose petals, dry to preserve them but still retaining their delicate form and subtle fragrance, are added next. They float on the surface of the liquid like tiny boats upon a magical sea, and as they absorb the liquid and begin to soften and sink, they release the last of their stored scent, that perfect rose aroma that speaks of summer gardens and gentle breezes and beauty that exists simply for its own sake. Chamomile flowers follow, their small forms disappearing into the brew with barely a ripple. Where they sink, the liquid seems to become lighter, less dense, and more effervescent. Bubbles form in greater numbers, rising in streams and chains, each one perfectly round and catching the light like tiny jewels before bursting at the surface. A sprig of fresh rosemary, its needle-like leaves still green and fragrant, is added to the mixture. Unlike the dried ingredients, this herb has been freshly cut, and it brings with it a burst of living energy that contrasts beautifully with the preserved and processed components already present. The rosemary floats on the surface for a moment, then is drawn down by the stirring motion of the wooden spoon, disappearing into the depths of the cauldron. From a small silver flask comes a measure of something clear as water, but slightly more viscous, moving like light oil when poured. This is essence of moonbeam, collected on nights of the full moon using methods known only to a select few. The moonbeam essence adds a silvery sheen to the liquid, overlaying the colours already present without obscuring them, instead enhancing them, making them somehow more vivid, more real. The stirring continues, and now the rhythm changes again, becoming faster, more urgent. The spoon moves through the liquid with increased speed, creating a whirlpool that reaches nearly to the bottom of the cauldron. The bubbles become smaller and more numerous, until the surface of the liquid appears to be made of foam rather than water, a golden shimmering foam that catches and holds the light. Small crystals, no larger than grains of salt, are sprinkled into the cauldron. These are fragments of frozen dewdrops, preserved through methods I could not explain even if I tried. As they enter the warm liquid, they do not melt immediately, but instead spin and dance, carried by the current created by the stirring spoon. Each crystal leaves a trail of sparkling motes in its wake, like a comet trailing stardust across a miniature sky. The liquid is beginning to thicken now, taking on a consistency somewhere between water and honey, flowing less readily but still bubbling and shifting within the cauldron. The colours have settled somewhat, stabilising into a beautiful gradient that shifts from deep gold at the base, through pale green in the middle, to a silvery purple at the surface. It is like looking at a sunset captured and contained, all the colours of the sky as day transitions to night. A final ingredient remains to be added. From a container carved from a single piece of amber, translucent and golden and warm to the touch, comes a single drop of something that seems almost too bright to look at directly. This is pure essence of joy, distilled from laughter and happy memories, and moments of perfect contentment. It is the rarest ingredient of all, for joy cannot be forced or faked, only collected when it appears spontaneously and freely given. The drop falls into the cauldron, and the effect is transformative. The entire mixture lights up from within, as if a sun had been born in its depths. The light is not harsh or uncomfortable, but warm and welcoming. The kind of light that makes you want to draw closer, to bask in its radiance. The bubbling reaches a crescendo, foam rising nearly to the rim of the cauldron before settling back down, leaving the surface smooth and glowing. The wooden spoon makes one final circuit through the liquid, then withdraws and floats back to its resting place. The stirring is complete, the brewing is finished. What remains in the cauldron is no longer just a mixture of ingredients, but a true elixir, a potion that embodies peace and tranquility and the promise of restful sleep. The invisible presence that has been tending the cauldron now retrieves a crystal ladle, its handle wrapped in silver wire for better grip. The ladle dips into the shimmering liquid and emerges filled with the elixir, which gleams and sparkles in the firelight. The substance is slightly effervescent, small bubbles rising through it in lazy spirals, each bubble carrying a tiny point of light. The ladle moves to where a row of small bottles waits on one of the workbenches. These bottles are made of glass so clear it is nearly invisible, their only decoration a simple stopper made of cork and sealed with wax. One by one, the bottles are filled with the sparkling elixir, the liquid pouring from the ladle in a smooth stream that catches the light and throws tiny rainbows across the surrounding surfaces. As each bottle fills, the elixir within begins to settle and clarify, though it never loses its gentle luminescence or its subtle effervescence. The bubbles continue to rise slow and steady, like the breathing of someone deep in the peaceful sleep. The colours swirl and shift within the confines of the glass, creating patterns that are never quite the same, from one moment to the next. When all the bottles have been filled, they are stoppered carefully and arranged in a wooden rack where they can cool and finish their transformation. The elixir is not quite ready for consumption, not yet. It needs time to rest, to allow all the different essences and energies to fully harmonise with one another, to become not just a mixture, but a unity. The fire beneath the cauldron begins to die down, its work complete for now. The flames shift from their magical blues and purples and greens back to more ordinary oranges and yellows before dwindling to mere embers and finally going out altogether, leaving no ash, no spent fuel, nothing but clean stone where the fire had been. The clearing settles into peaceful quiet, the bubbling of the cauldron fading to silence, the musical clinking of glass and wood stilling. Only the soft ambient sounds of the forest remain, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of night birds, the eternal whispering of the trees sharing their ancient secrets. The bottles of elixir continue to glow softly on their rack, beacons of captured light and concentrated serenity. They will wait there until they are needed, until someone comes seeking the peace they offer, the promise of dreams untroubled and sleep deep and restorative. As the clearing settles into tranquil stillness, the quality of light begins to change once more. The golden glow from the now extinguished alchemical fire fades, but it does not leave us in darkness. Instead, a new illumination appears, softer and more diffused, emanating from countless tiny sources scattered throughout the surrounding forest. Fireflies, hundreds or perhaps thousands of them, have emerged from their daytime hiding places and now drift through the air like living stars. Their bioluminescence pulses in gentle rhythm, creating waves of light that wash through the trees in slow, mesmerizing patterns. Some fireflies glow with the traditional yellow-green light we might expect, but others, these magical denizens of enchanted woods, shine with colours not normally seen in nature. Here is one that glows soft blue, there another that pulses with gentle pink, and still others that shift through a spectrum of colours with each flash. The fireflies seem drawn to a particular spot deeper in the woods, and we follow their lead, leaving the clearing with its cooling cauldron and glowing bottles behind. The path we walk now is even narrower than before, winding between massive tree trunks and around boulders covered in moss so thick and soft it resembles cushions of finest velvet. The concentration of fireflies grows thicker ahead, until it appears as though we are approaching a constellation that has descended to Earth. And there, in a glade no more than 30 paces across, we find what might be called a natural cathedral, a place where the trees have arranged themselves in a perfect circle, their branches interweaving overhead to create a living roof that allows only occasional glimpses of the darkening sky above. In the centre of this glade sits a fire pit, but not one newly made. This depression in the earth has been used for flames countless times over uncounted years. The stones that ring it are smooth and dark with soot, each one placed with obvious care to create a perfect circle. The ashes within are deep, the accumulation of generations of fires, but they do not look cold or dead. Instead, they seem merely dormant, waiting patiently for the next spark to bring them back to glowing life. And even as we watch, that spark comes. From somewhere in the surrounding darkness, a tiny mote of light drifts into the fire pit and settles among the ashes. For a moment, nothing happens. Then a soft red glow appears where the spark landed, spreading slowly through the ash like a blush creeping across pale skin. The glow strengthens, deepens, becoming brighter and warmer until individual coals can be distinguished, each one radiating its own heat and light. But these coals produce no smoke, no crackling, none of the usual sounds and smells of burning wood. Instead, they generate only warmth and a gentle, steady light that is more amber than orange, softer and more soothing to the eye than any campfire you have ever sat beside. The warmth reaches out to us, where we stand at the glade's edge, inviting us closer, promising comfort without danger. As we settle ourselves upon the soft moss at the fire's perimeter, we begin to notice other details about this special place. The trees forming the circle are of different species: oak and ash, elm and birch, pine and willow, all growing in harmony despite their different needs and natures. Their trunks are carved with symbols, not the random scratches of bored travellers, but carefully crafted marks that speak of reverence and ritual. Here is a tree carved with spirals, there another marked with interlocking triangles, and still another decorated with what appears to be writing in a script so old its meaning has been forgotten by all but the trees themselves. The fireflies have settled as well, many of them coming to rest on the lower branches of the circling trees, creating a ring of gentle pulsing lights that complements the steady glow of the ember fire. Their combined illumination fills the glade with a quality of light that seems to exist outside of time, neither day nor night but something in between, a perpetual twilight that invites stories and reflection. And speaking of stories, it seems the forest itself has been waiting for this moment, for us to settle and become still, for the fire to reach its proper strength and the fireflies to find their places. A presence makes itself known, not through sudden appearance but through a gradual awareness that we are no longer alone, that something large and ancient and infinitely patient has been here all along, simply waiting for the proper time to reveal itself. The air at the far side of the fire begins to shimmer, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone. Though the temperature remains comfortably cool, the shimmering intensifies, becoming almost solid, taking on form and substance. What emerges is difficult to describe, for it does not appear all at once, but rather materializes in fragments. An eye here, a gleaming scale there, the curve of a claw, the sweep of a wing, each piece assembling itself from mist and starlight and ancient magic until what sits across the fire from us is unmistakable. A dragon. But this is not a dragon of savage legend. No fire-breathing terror to devastate villages and hoard gold in mountain caves. This is something far older and infinitely more wise, a creature that existed before the first humans spoke their first words, before cities were built or kingdoms founded. This is a dragon of the deep earth and the old magic, a keeper of memories and guardian of lore that predates written history. The dragon is neither large nor small in any absolute sense, for its size seems to shift depending on how you look at it. One moment it appears no bigger than a large dog, curled comfortably beside the fire. The next it seems vast as a mountain, so large that what you took for its whole body was merely one coil of its serpentine form. Perhaps both perceptions are true, or perhaps neither, or perhaps size has no fixed meaning for a creature made as much of thought and memory as of flesh and scale. Its scales, where the firelight touches them, gleam with an iridescent quality that shifts through shades of deep green and midnight blue, with occasional flashes of bronze and copper and gold. Each scale is perfectly formed, overlapping its neighbours in patterns that please the eye without revealing the mathematical precision underlying their arrangement. Some scales are smooth as polished glass, while others have a slightly textured surface that catches and diffuses the light. The dragon's eyes are perhaps its most striking feature, large and luminous, with slitted pupils that dilate and contract as it gazes into the fire. The irises are a colour that seems to exist nowhere else in nature, a deep amber that holds within it flecks of green and gold, and occasionally flashes of something that might be red or might be purple, depending on the angle of view. These are eyes that have watched empires rise and fall, that have seen mountains worn to hills by wind and rain, that have observed the slow dance of stars across the sky through ages beyond counting. When the dragon finally speaks, its voice is not the terrible roar one might expect, but something altogether more subtle and far more compelling. It speaks in a register that seems to resonate not with your ears, but with your bones, with the core of your being, in a frequency that bypasses normal hearing altogether and communicates directly with something deeper and older in your consciousness. "Welcome, travellers," the dragon says, and though its mouth does not move in the way a mammal's might, the words are perfectly clear, perfectly understood. It has been some time since anyone came to hear the old stories, to learn the lore that was ancient when your ancestors were young. Settle yourselves comfortably, let the fire warm you, let the night embrace you, and I shall tell you of times long past, of when the world was younger and magic flowed as freely as water from a spring. The dragon shifts its position, settling more deeply into its coils, its head coming to rest on its folded forelimbs in a posture that suggests a large cat preparing for a nap, though the intelligence and awareness in those amber eyes never dims. "In the beginning," the dragon intones, "before humans walked the earth, before even the elves withdrew to their hidden kingdoms, there was only magic and the beings made from it. We dragons were among the first to take solid form, drawn forth from the raw, creative energy of a world still deciding what shape it would take. As the dragon speaks, images seem to form in the fire, shapes and scenes that illustrate the words. We see a world of swirling chaos, of elements not yet separated into earth and air, fire and water, but existing in a state of pure potential. Through this chaos move shapes that might be dragons, vast and terrible and beautiful, bringing order through their presence, defining boundaries and establishing the natural laws that would govern all things to come. We were not created," the dragon continues, "but rather we emerged, called into being by the universe's need for consciousness to observe and shape and guide. Each of us carried within ourselves a particular aspect of creation. Some embodied the fury of storms, while others held the patience of stone. Some spoke with the voice of the sea, and others sang with the whisper of wind through mountain passes. The images in the fire shift, showing individual dragons now, each one distinct in form and colour, and the aura of power that surrounds it. There is a dragon of pure white, its scales like fresh snow, leaving trails of frost wherever it walks. Another dragon appears wreathed in flames, not burning but creating fire, breathing not destruction, but warmth and light into the cold darkness of early creation. For ages uncounted we shaped the world according to the grand design written in the stars themselves. We carved the valleys and raised the mountains. We filled the seas and set the rivers flowing. We planted the seeds of the first forests and taught the winds their proper courses. It was joyful work, the labour of those who create for the pure satisfaction of seeing something beautiful come into being. A note of something that might be wistfulness enters the dragon's voice, a longing for those simpler times when purpose was clear and the work was all that mattered. But creation is not meant to remain unchanging, and the world we had shaped began to generate its own new forms. Life emerged first simple and small, then growing more complex, more varied, more wonderfully unpredictable. We dragons watched with fascination as creatures we had not designed began to populate the world, each one finding its niche, adapting and changing and giving rise to ever more diverse forms. The fire now shows forests teeming with life, oceans full of swimming things, skies crossed by the first birds. It is a world vibrant and alive, beautiful in its chaos and variety. And then came the speaking races. First the elves, beautiful and terrible in their ageless wisdom, living in harmony with magic because they themselves were half made of it. They recognized us as kin of a sort, and for a time we dwelt together in peace, dragons and elves sharing the wild places and teaching each other what we knew of the world's deep secrets. The scenes in the fire show cities unlike any built today, towers of white stone that seem to grow from the earth rather than being constructed upon it, gardens where every plant glows with its own inner light, and bridges that span impossible distances without any visible means of support. Through these cities walk figures of ethereal beauty, the elves in their prime, before weariness and the weight of ages convinced them to withdraw from the world. But the elves were not meant to be the final speakers, the ultimate inheritors of the world we had shaped. They were a bridge, beautiful and necessary, but temporary. And so humans emerged, short-lived and passionate, curious and ambitious, carrying within themselves a spark of something the elves had never possessed, a drive to not just exist within the world but to change it, to reshape it according to their own vision and needs. The dragon pauses, and something like a sigh seems to pass through the glade, stirring the leaves overhead and causing the fireflies to pulse in unison. We dragons did not know what to make of humans at first. They seemed so fragile, so brief in their span of years, dying before they could accumulate even a fraction of the wisdom age should bring. And yet they possessed a vitality, a creative force that sometimes outshone even our own ancient power. They built and dreamed and strived, and though individual humans passed like mayflies, their works persisted, each generation building upon what the previous had accomplished. Now the fire shows human cities, vastly different from the elven ones. These are structures of stone and wood, and eventually metal, practical and sturdy rather than ethereally beautiful. But there is something compelling about them nonetheless, a determination in their architecture that speaks of a race that has decided not just to exist but to thrive, to make their mark upon the world regardless of how briefly they might shine. Some dragons embrace the humans, becoming their teachers and sometimes their friends. These dragons passed on knowledge of magic and metallurgy, of agriculture and astronomy, helping humanity take its first steps toward the civilization that would eventually span the globe. Other dragons withdrew, disturbed by human ambition and the changes they brought, preferring to sleep in deep caves or remote mountains until this strange new age had passed. The dragon's gaze becomes more focused, more intense, as if looking not at us but through us, into the past or perhaps into possible futures. I was one of those who withdrew, not out of fear or disapproval, but from a recognition that humanity needed to find its own path without ancient powers constantly guiding or interfering. I have slept for centuries at a time, waking occasionally to observe how the world has changed, to see what new wonders humans have wrought, or what old magics they have rediscovered. The scenes in the fire shift again, now showing the passage of time in rapid succession. Kingdoms rise and fall, technologies emerge and are perfected, the map of the world is redrawn again and again as borders shift and peoples migrate. Through it all, the essential nature of humanity remains constant, that curious mix of wisdom and foolishness, of creation and destruction, of love and hatred existing side by side. And what have I learned in my long watching? The dragon asks, though it seems to be addressing the question as much to itself as to us. That humans, for all their brevity, possess something remarkable. You live as if each moment matters, because for you, it truly does. You love fiercely because you know love will not last forever. You create with urgency because you understand that time is precious and limited. The dragon's eyes meet ours across the fire, and in that gaze is something that might be respect or perhaps even a touch of envy. We dragons are eternal, or near enough that the distinction hardly matters. We have all the time in the world to accomplish our purposes, to perfect our knowledge, to simply exist. And because we have eternity, we sometimes forget to truly live in the present moment. We plan for centuries ahead and remember millennia past, but the now, the immediate and precious now, sometimes escapes us. A long pause follows as the dragon seems to gather its thoughts, or perhaps to remember things best left in the past. There is a human quality that dragons have always struggled to understand, and that is hope. You humans hope even when logic says you should despair. You dream of better days even when all evidence suggests such days will never come. You believe in possibilities that have no rational basis for belief. And somehow, impossibly, you are often proven right. Your very audacity in hoping creates the circumstances that make hope manifest. The fire burns lower now, the coals settling into deeper reds and oranges, but the warmth remains constant, comforting. In the old days, the dragon continues, voice growing softer, more reflective. When magic was plentiful and easily accessed by those with the knowledge and will to use it, dragons were the undisputed masters of that magic. We wove spells that reshaped landscapes and diverted rivers, that called storms and calmed seas. Our magic was vast and powerful and, if I am honest, sometimes careless of consequences. The admission seems to cost the dragon something, a recognition of imperfection that does not come easily to a creature accustomed to existing above such concerns. But humans approached magic differently. Where we commanded with ancient authority, humans coaxed and bargained. Where we imposed our will upon the forces of nature, humans worked with those forces, becoming partners rather than masters. Your magic was often smaller in scope than ours, but it was also more flexible, more creative, capable of subtle manipulations that our grand workings could never achieve. The images in the fire now show human magicians at work, though these are not the stereotypical wizards in pointed hats. These are healers easing, suffering farmers, coaxing better yields from a tired soil, artists creating works of such beauty they partake of magic simply through their excellence. These are ordinary people, doing extraordinary things through the application of will and knowledge, and the fundamental human refusal to accept limitations. As magic has faded from the world, or rather as it has become harder to access and channel, many dragons have withdrawn even further, sleeping more deeply, engaging with the waking world less frequently. But I have chosen differently. I have made it my purpose to remember, to preserve the old lore and the ancient knowledge so that when humanity is ready to reclaim its magical heritage, the wisdom will not have been entirely lost. The dragon shifts again, raising its head from its four limbs and regarding us with an intensity that is simultaneously comforting and slightly overwhelming. That is why I come to this glade when the fireflies dance and the embers glow. I come to tell the old stories to whoever might listen, to keep the memories alive, to ensure that the bridge between past and future remains intact. Every tale remembered is a thread connecting what was to what might be. Every bit of lore passed on is a seed that might someday sprout and grow into something unexpected and wonderful. The dragon's voice takes on a rhythmic quality, almost like a chant or the beginning of a spell. Remember that magic is not gone but only sleeping, like a dragon in its cave. Remember that the old powers still exist, woven into the fabric of the world, waiting to be awakened by those with eyes to see and hearts brave enough to believe. Remember that wisdom is not the property of the ancient alone, that each generation discovers its own truths and adds them to the accumulated knowledge of ages. The fireflies begin to pulse in synchronization with the dragon's words, creating a visual rhythm that reinforces the spoken one. Remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Remember that love is the greatest magic, capable of transformations that no spell could accomplish. Remember that every ending contains within it the seed of a new beginning, and that change, though sometimes painful, is the nature of all living things. The dragon's voice grows softer still, but somehow it carries even more clearly than before. as if the very air has decided to help convey these words. And remember this above all: you are part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. The same forces that shaped the first dragons and carved the mountains flow through you as well. You are made of starlight and earth, of water and air, of magic and matter, all blended together in the unique combination that makes you yourself. Never forget your own power, your own potential, your own connection to the great web of existence that binds all things together. The fire dims further, the coals glowing more softly, their light taking on an almost dreamy quality that makes the boundaries between waking and sleeping blur and fade. But I have spoken long, and the night grows deeper, and you have come seeking not just knowledge but rest. Let my words settle in your mind like seeds in fertile soil. Let them rest there, taking root in the dark spaces of sleep and dream, growing into whatever they will become. We dragons know much about patience, about allowing things time to develop naturally, rather than forcing them into premature growth. The dragon lowers its head once more, its eyelids drooping as if it too feels the call of sleep. I will remain here by the fire, keeping watch through the night, ensuring that your rest is undisturbed and your dreams are gentle. Sleep now, travellers. Sleep and dream, and know that you are safe in this ancient glade under the protection of one who has endured through ages beyond counting and will endure through ages still to come. As the dragon's words fade into the soft rustling of leaves and the gentle pulsing of firefly light, a profound sense of peace settles over the glade. The ember fire continues its steady glow, and the warmth it provides seems to wrap around us like the most comfortable blanket ever woven. The dragon's form across the fire grows translucent, fading not away but into a state of restful meditation, its presence still felt but no longer, demanding attention. It is in this moment of perfect tranquility that we remember the elixir, those bottles of sparkling liquid left cooling in the clearing where the cauldron stands. And as if in response to the thought, one of those bottles appears at the edge of the glade, carried perhaps by the same invisible presence that tended the cauldron, or maybe simply manifesting because the time is right and need calls it into being. The bottle sits upon a smooth stone at the very edge of the fire's light, where warmth and coolness meet in perfect balance. It glows with a soft internal luminescence, the liquid inside still gently effervescent, tiny bubbles rising in lazy spirals through the golden green substance. The light from the embers makes the elixir sparkle, each bubble catching and reflecting that warm glow until the bottle seems to contain a galaxy in miniature, complete with countless tiny stars. Beside the bottle sits a cup carved from a single piece of pale wood that might be holly or perhaps ash. The cup is simple in design, with no decoration beyond the natural grain of the wood, but it has been polished to a smooth finish that makes it pleasant to hold. The wood still carries within it the essence of the living tree, a sense of growth and patient strength that somehow communicates itself through touch alone. The act of pouring the elixir becomes a ceremony in itself, though unplanned and unrehearsed. The cork stopper comes free with the softest pop, releasing a breath of scent that combines all the ingredients that went into the brew. There is the coolness of starfruit berries, the warm sweetness of honey-touched stardust, the calming floral notes of lavender and rose and chamomile, the clarifying sharpness of rosemary, all blended together into a fragrance that seems to ease tension simply through being inhaled. The liquid pours from the bottle in a smooth stream, catching the firelight and creating momentary rainbows in the air. It flows like honey but not quite as thick, with a consistency that speaks of substance without weight, of nourishment without heaviness. As the cup fills, the sound it makes is musical, a soft glug 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 that somehow harmonizes with the ambient sounds of the forest, the rustling leaves and distant owl calls, and the gentle breathing of the sleeping dragon. When the cup is half full, the pouring stops, leaving room for the effervescence to play without risk of overflow. The bubbles rise more enthusiastically, now that the liquid has room to move, creating small currents within the cup that catch the light and throw tiny dancing shadows on the surrounding stone. Lifting the cup brings it close enough to fully appreciate the elixir's appearance. The liquid is not a single colour, but rather contains all the colours that went into its making, and these colours shift and swirl in patterns that never quite repeat. One moment it appears primarily golden, the next more green, then with undertones of purple, then shot through with silver, all flowing into and out of one another like the most graceful dance ever performed. The bubbles continue their ascent, and each one, as it reaches the surface and bursts, releases a tiny puff of that complex, wonderful scent. It is like standing in a garden at twilight, when the flowers release their evening fragrance, and the air is cool and soft and perfect. It is like walking through a pine forest after rain, when everything smells clean and green and alive. It is like the scent of your favourite childhood blanket, the one that always meant safety and comfort and home. The first sip is an experience that engages all the senses simultaneously. The liquid touches the lips, and its temperature is neither warm nor cool, but perfectly neutral. Exactly the same temperature as the body itself, as if the elixir recognises what is needed and adjusts itself accordingly. The consistency is smooth but not slippery, substantial but not thick, a texture that pleases without calling undue attention to itself. As the liquid enters the mouth, the taste unfolds in layers. First comes a sweetness but not cloying, not candy-like, rather the subtle sweetness of ripe fruit or honey diluted with morning dew. Beneath that sweetness lies something floral, the taste of lavender and rose petals, delicate and sophisticated. Then comes an herbal note, the clean, sharp flavour of rosemary that clears the palate and awakens the senses even as it soothes them. The effervescence adds another dimension, tiny bubbles popping against tongue and palate, creating a gentle tingling sensation that is pleasant, without being overwhelming. The bubbles carry flavour with them, releasing it in small bursts that prolong the tasting experience, ensuring that each moment brings some new subtle variation to notice and appreciate. Swallowing the elixir brings yet more sensations. There is a smoothness to its passage, as if the liquid knows the way and flows without hesitation or resistance. As it descends, it leaves behind a warmth, not the burning warmth of alcohol or the heat of spice, but something gentler, more diffused, a spreading sensation of comfort that radiates from the core outward. The effects of the elixir begin almost immediately, though so subtly you might not notice them at first. Shoulders that had been carrying tension for so long you had forgotten it was there begin to drop and relax. The small muscles around the eyes, kept tense by the effort of constant focus, soften and ease. Breathing, which had perhaps been more shallow than ideal, deepens naturally, without conscious effort, the lungs filling more completely, the exhalations lasting longer and carrying away stress with each release. A second sip brings more of the same pleasures, but also reveals new nuances in the taste. Have those notes of vanilla and honey been there all along, or are they emerging now that the palate has adjusted and become more sensitive? Is that a hint of mint? Just the barest suggestion, enough to refresh without overwhelming the more delicate flavours? Or perhaps a touch of cinnamon, so subtle it might be imagination, adding a warm, spicy undertone to the overall profile. The world around you begins to take on a slightly dreamlike quality, though you remain fully conscious and aware. Colours seem richer, more saturated, as if a veil you had not known was there has been lifted. The firelight's glow appears warmer, more golden, casting shadows that are soft and comforting rather than dark and threatening. The stars visible through gaps in the forest canopy seem to shine more brightly, each one a distinct point of light, rather than a vague blur of luminescence. Sounds, too, become more distinct and yet somehow more soothing. You can hear individual leaves rustling, can distinguish the call of a distant nightingale from the hoot of a nearby owl, can perceive the soft breathing of the dragon across the fire and the quiet settling of coals as they gradually cool. But rather than these sounds being overwhelming or distracting, they weave together into a symphony of night, each element enhancing the others, creating a soundscape that invites relaxation and contemplation. A third sip of the elixir, and the effects deepen further. The mind, which had been active and alert, processing the dragon's tales and observing every detail of the surroundings, begins to slow and quiet. Thoughts become less insistent, less demanding of immediate attention. The endless internal dialogue that usually runs in the background of consciousness fades to a gentle murmur, and then to silence, leaving behind a clear, calm awareness that observes without judging, experiences without analysing. The body feels lighter now, as if some burden you had not realised you were carrying has been lifted away. Muscles that had been held tight, protecting against perceived threats or just from habit, release their grip and settle into comfortable positions. The spine straightens naturally, finding its proper alignment without effort. Arms and legs find positions of perfect rest, neither stretched nor contracted, simply allowed to be. The elixir in the cup is nearly gone now, just a few swallows remaining. The bubbles have slowed their ascent, rising now in 2s and 3s rather than in streams, but they have not stopped entirely. The liquid still glows with that gentle internal light, still shifts through its spectrum of colours, still holds within it all the magic and care that went into its creation. The final sip is savoured slowly, held in the mouth for a long moment before being swallowed, allowing every taste bud to experience the full complexity of flavour one last time. There is gratitude in this final taste, an acknowledgement of the gift that has been given, of the peace and comfort that has been so freely offered. As the last of the elixir slides down the throat, bringing with it that final spreading warmth, a profound sense of wellness settles over body and mind. This is not the absence of sensation, but rather the presence of perfect balance, of all systems working in harmony, of body and mind and spirit aligned and at peace with one another and with the world. The empty cup is set down gently on the stone where the bottle still sits, its task complete for now. The wood of the cup seems to glow faintly in the firelight, as if it too has absorbed some of the elixir's magic and is reluctant to let that energy dissipate entirely. The dragon across the fire shifts slightly, one eye opening to regard you with ancient wisdom and something that might be satisfaction. Its voice comes not as sound, but as a thought that forms directly in your mind, gentle as a whisper but clear as a bell. The elixir has done its work well. You are ready now for the final journey, the descent into the realm of dreams where the conscious mind releases its control and the deeper self is free to wander and explore and heal. Do not resist what comes next. Let go of waking concerns. Trust in the process that has been set in motion and know that you are safe, protected and cared for. The dragon's eye closes once more, but you can sense its continued presence, a guardian watching over your rest, ensuring that nothing will disturb the peace that has been so carefully cultivated. The fireflies have dimmed their lights, no longer pulsing but maintaining a steady, very faint glow that is just enough to keep them complete darkness at bay without preventing sleep. The ember fire too has settled into its deepest glow, the coals barely red now, radiating warmth but very little. Light, creating an environment that invites the eyes to close and remain closed. The effects of the elixir continue to deepen, moving beyond the physical relaxation and mental quieting into something more profound. There is a sense of connection now, not just to this glade in this forest, but to something larger and more encompassing. You can feel, or perhaps imagine you can feel, the slow turning of the earth beneath you, the ancient stone and patient soil, the roots of trees reaching deep into darkness and their branches stretching toward distant stars. You are aware, in a way that transcends normal perception, of the life that surrounds you. The trees breathing in rhythm with the breeze, the small creatures bedded down in hollow logs and beneath protective roots, the dragon maintaining its watchful meditation, the very forest itself as a living entity of which you are temporarily a part. Time seems to lose its usual meaning. Minutes might pass or hours, but it does not matter, for you have entered a space where time's passage is irrelevant, where only the present moment exists and that moment is perfect and complete in itself, The forest sounds, which had been distinct and individual, begin to blend together into a single unified voice. It is not that they lose their individual character, but rather that you perceive them differently now, hearing not separate sounds but a chorus, a unified expression of the forest's essential nature. The rustling of leaves, the soft calls of night birds, the gentle whisper of breeze through branches, the distant trickling of water over stone, all of these merge into one great song that seems to have always existed and will always continue. This song of the forest becomes a lullaby, ancient and primal, the same sounds that have soothed living things to sleep since the first trees grew and the first creatures sought shelter beneath them. It is a sound that speaks to something deep in human memory, a connection to times when our ancestors knew they were part of nature rather than separate from it, when they slept under stars and trusted the wild world to keep them safe through the night. Your breathing, which had already deepened and slowed under the influence of the elixir, synchronizes with this rhythm of the forest. Each inhalation draws in air that seems laden with peace, and each exhalation releases tension and worry and the accumulated stress of waking life. The breath becomes a bridge, connecting inner and outer worlds, linking the self to the greater whole of existence. The physical sensations of the body begin to fade, not disappearing but becoming less important, less demanding of attention. You are aware that you have a body, that it rests comfortably on soft moss beside a warm fire, but this awareness no longer requires active monitoring. The body has been given permission to rest, and it accepts that permission gratefully, settling even more deeply into relaxation. The mind too continues its journey toward stillness. Thoughts that arise now do so gently, without urgency, like bubbles rising through water. They are noticed, acknowledged, and then allowed to pass without being pursued or elaborated upon. Worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, plans and anxieties, and all the usual mental chatter that normally occupies consciousness, all of this fades into insignificance, unable to compete with the profound peace that has taken root. The darkness behind closed eyelids begins to take on character and texture. It is not a flat, uniform black, but rather contains gradations, subtle shifts in tone that create the impression of depth and space. Here and there, faint lights appear, not the fireflies or the ember fire, but something internal, the mind beginning to create the images that will become dreams. These initial images are fragmentary and abstract, shapes without clear form, colours without definite boundaries, a swirl of blue that might suggest water or sky, a flash of gold that could be sunlight or firelight, a patch of green that evokes forests or fields. These are not yet dreams, but the raw materials from which dreams will be constructed, the palette from which the sleeping mind will paint its nocturnal visions. The sense of the glade around you, which had been so vivid and immediate, begins to recede slightly. You know it is still there, that you remain safe and protected in that magical space, but your awareness of it becomes more distant, as if you were moving away, or as if a gentle curtain were being drawn between waking perception and the realm of sleep, and the dragon's presence remains, but it too has changed in quality. Rather than a physical being sitting across the fire, it has become something more archetypal, a symbol of ancient protection and wisdom, a guardian that exists as much in the realm of dream as in waking reality. You can sense its watchfulness, its commitment to ensuring your safety, but this knowledge exists in a layer of consciousness that does not require active attention to maintain. The forest song continues, but you no longer hear it with your ears. Instead, it has become part of the fabric of your awareness, a fundamental vibration that underlies all experience, present but no longer consciously noted, like the beating of your own heart or the flow of blood through your veins. And then, so gradually that there is no single moment when it happens, the boundary between waking and sleeping dissolves. You do not fall asleep in the usual sense. Do not experience that sudden shift from one state to another. Instead, sleep rises up like water filling a vessel, gentle and inevitable, transforming awareness from one form into another without violence or disruption. The dreams that come are unlike ordinary dreams. influenced by the elixir and the dragon's tales, by the magic of the forest and the perfect peace of the glade. These are dreams of unusual clarity and meaning. You might find yourself flying above landscapes of impossible beauty, or walking through gardens where every flower sings its own unique song. You might encounter wise beings who offer guidance in symbolic form, or revisit memories from your past but see them now with new understanding and compassion. These dreams are not random firings of neurons but a form of therapy, of processing and healing, of integrating experiences and emotions and preparing the self for whatever challenges await in waking life. They are the mind's way of maintaining itself, of sorting through the day's accumulations and filing away what is useful while discarding what is not. But more than that, these dreams touched by magic and elixir are also a gift, a glimpse into possibilities beyond the ordinary, a reminder that reality contains more depth and wonder than the waking mind usually perceives. They are a journey into your own inner landscape, an exploration of the vast territories that exist within consciousness, most of which remain unmapped and rarely visited. Time loses all meaning in this state. Dreams that seem to last for hours might occupy only minutes of clock time, while others that appear to pass in moments might actually span much longer periods. The sleeping mind does not measure time in the same way waking consciousness does, and this liberation from temporal constraints allows for experiences that would be impossible in the structured reality of daylight. The dreams shift and flow, one melting into another without clear boundaries or transitions. You might be exploring underwater cities one moment and wandering through autumn forests the next, with no sense of discontinuity, no jarring shifts, everything flowing naturally as only dreams can flow. Throughout all of this, beneath and beyond the specific content of individual dreams, there runs a current of deep restoration. This is sleep at its most restorative, the kind that heals not just the body but the mind and spirit as well. Cells repair themselves, neural pathways strengthen or prune according to need, memories consolidate, emotional wounds begin to heal, and the whole complex system that is a human being performs its necessary maintenance. The magic of the elixir supports and enhances these natural processes, ensuring that the restoration occurs as efficiently and thoroughly as possible. The protection of the dragon and the nurturing environment of the enchanted glade provide the perfect conditions for this work to proceed undisturbed. As the night deepens and slowly begins its turn toward eventual dawn, the quality of dreams shifts again. They become lighter, less intense, more playful perhaps, as if the serious work has been completed and what remains is simply the joy of experiencing consciousness in its free, unstructured form. These later dreams might involve simple pleasures, the taste of wonderful food, the sound of music that moves the soul, the company of loved ones both living and past, reunions and reconciliations that occur in that space where dream makes all things possible, and always, underlying everything is that sense of safety and peace, the knowledge that you are protected and cared for, that nothing can harm you here, that this time and space have been set aside specifically for your restoration and healing. The forest continues its eternal rhythms around your sleeping form. The breeze continues to flow through branches. The stream continues its endless journey over stone. The earth continues its slow turning that will eventually bring the sun back above the horizon. But these events occur at a great distance from where you are, in the deep chambers of restorative sleep, beyond the reach of external disturbances. The dragon maintains its watch, patient and eternal, needing no sleep itself but understanding the necessity of rest for beings whose lives are measured in decades rather than millennia. Its presence is a bubble of protection around the glade, ensuring that nothing and no one will intrude upon this sacred time of restoration. And so the night passes, each hour bringing deeper rest, more thorough healing, more complete restoration. The elixir continues its work at a cellular level, its magic supporting and enhancing the body's natural wisdom. The dreams continue their processing and integrating and occasional flights of pure imagination. The forest continues its ancient song, This is sleep as it was meant to be, before the stresses of modern life and the demands of civilization made it difficult to access this deep, restorative state consistently. This is sleep that our ancestors knew, when they bedded down in safe caves or protected clearings, when they trusted in the night and the natural rhythms of their bodies and the world around them. As the night reaches its deepest point, the point furthest from both sunset and sunrise, the sleep too reaches its deepest level. This is the place of profound rest, where consciousness has descended so far into its own depths that it touches something universal, something shared by all living things, a fundamental state of being that transcends individual identity. In this place, there is no past to regret and no future to fear. There is no self that needs defending or promoting or improving. There is only existence itself, pure and simple, the miracle of being that requires nothing more than what it already is. This moment of deepest sleep, of ultimate rest, is so profound that it exists outside of time altogether. It might last an instant or an eternity, but such distinctions have no meaning here. It simply is, complete and perfect in itself, a gift beyond measure, a peace beyond understanding. And then, so gradually, that the shift is barely perceptible, the tide begins to turn. The depths of sleep have been plumbed, the necessary restoration has occurred, and now, slowly, gently, without any jarring awakening, consciousness begins its return journey toward the surface of waking life. The dreams shift again, becoming lighter and more ephemeral, less vivid and more easily forgotten. These are the dreams of early morning, the gentle fantasies that occupy the mind as it prepares to resume its waking duties. They are sweet and meaningless, pleasant distractions that smooth the transition between sleeping and waking. The physical body begins to reassert itself, not uncomfortably, but with gentle reminders of its presence. A hand might twitch slightly, or a foot shift position. Breathing, which had become so slow and deep as to be almost imperceptible, begins to quicken just slightly. The heart rate, which had dropped to its lowest safe level, begins to increase in preparation for the demands of waking life. But there is no rush, no urgency. The transition is allowed to occur at its own natural pace, with no alarms or external pressures forcing consciousness back into the world before it is ready. The forest glade remains a space of safety and peace, and you are permitted to linger in the borderlands between sleeping and waking for as long as your body and mind require. The song of the forest, which had faded into imperceptibility during deepest sleep, begins to register once more as individual sounds. The call of an early bird, greeting the approaching dawn, the rustling of small creatures beginning their day's activities, the ever-present whisper of breeze through leaves. These sounds do not disturb, but rather welcome, gentle invitations to return to waking awareness when ready. The ember fire has burned down to its lowest level, just the faintest glow remaining in the heart of the coals. But even this minimal warmth is enough to maintain comfort, and the approaching dawn will soon bring its own heat to replace what the fire has provided through the night. The dragon stirs slightly, its own meditation concluding in synchrony with your emergence from sleep. Its ancient eyes open once more, and in them you can see satisfaction, the knowledge that its guardianship has been successful, that the night has passed safely, and the sleep has been as restorative as intended. As your eyes begin to flutter open, the first thing you see is the soft light of dawn beginning to filter through the forest canopy. It is that magical blue light that exists only in the moments before sunrise, when night has released its hold, but day has not yet claimed dominion. Everything is bathed in this gentle ethereal glow, making the forest seem even more magical than it had in the firefly-lit darkness. You stretch slowly, luxuriously, muscles responding with none of the stiffness that often accompanies morning. The elixir has done its work well, leaving you feeling refreshed and renewed, more rested than you have felt in longer than you can remember. There is energy but not restlessness, alertness but not anxiety, a perfect state of readiness for whatever the day might bring. The dragon regards you with approval, and again its voice comes not as sound but as thought, gentle as the morning breeze. You have slept well and dreamed deeply. The magic has worked as it should, bringing you rest and restoration. Carry this peace with you as you return to your waking life. Remember that this place exists, not just in this enchanted forest but within yourself, a sanctuary you can access whenever you need refuge and renewal. With those words, the dragon begins to fade, not disappearing but becoming translucent, merging with the morning mist until it is impossible to say where dragon ends and mist begins. Its presence remains, will always remain in this glade, but it has released you from its direct guardianship, acknowledging that your need has been met and you are ready to continue your journey. The bottle and cup from which you drank the elixir remain on their stone, but both are now empty and clean, as if they had never contained anything, ready to be filled again when next they are needed. The fire pit holds only cold ash, no trace of the magical coals that burned through the night. The glade appears much as it must always appear in the morning light, a peaceful clearing in an ancient forest, beautiful and serene but holding its magic quietly, revealing its true nature only to those who come seeking rest and restoration. As you rise from your resting place on the soft moss, you feel a profound gratitude for the experience you have been given. The dragon's tales, the forest's lullaby, the elixir's magic, the deep and restorative sleep, all of these have combined to create a gift of immeasurable value, a night that will be remembered whenever rest is needed and peace seems elusive. The path that leads out of the glade and back through the whispering woods is easily found, marked not with signs but with an intuitive knowledge of the right direction. As you walk, the forest seems to acknowledge your passage, trees leaning slightly as if bowing, flowers turning to follow your progress, the breeze carrying scents of blessing and farewell. The journey back is timeless and peaceful, each step bringing you gradually closer to the world of daily life and responsibility, but without any sense of loss or regret. You carry with you the peace of the glade, the wisdom of the dragon, the restoration of deep sleep, and these gifts cannot be taken from you by any external circumstance. As you emerge from the forest at last, standing once more at the boundary between the magical and the mundane, you pause to look back. The trees stand silent and mysterious, giving no indication of the wonders they conceal within their shadows, but you know now what lies in their heart, and that knowledge is yours to keep, a secret shared between yourself and the ancient woods. The sun is rising fully now, casting long shadows and painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It is the beginning of a new day, full of possibilities and challenges, joys and sorrows, all the complex mixture that makes up a human life. But you face this day with strength and clarity, carrying within yourself the peace of deep rest, and the memory of magic encountered in a moonlit glade. Before we part ways, dear dreamers, I ask that you take a moment to share your thoughts. If this journey has brought you peace, if the tales have touched your heart, if the sleep has been restful, please consider pressing the like button below. It is a small gesture, but one that helps others find their way to the sanctuary of stories and dreams. And if you wish to return to this place, to hear more tales of dragons and elixirs, of magic and mystery, then subscribe to Sleepy Sorcerer Stories. Each visit brings new adventures, new opportunities for rest and restoration, new chances to touch the magic that still exists in wild places and ancient traditions. Share in the comments below what dreams came to you this night, what insights the dragon's wisdom sparked, what peace you found in the enchanted forest. Your experiences add to the collective magic of this space, creating a community of seekers and dreamers who support one another in the quest for rest and renewal. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with wonder, and your nights with peaceful sleep. May you remember that magic exists, not just in stories but in the world around you, waiting to be noticed by those with eyes to see and hearts open to possibility. May you carry with you always the peace of the forest glade, the protection of the ancient dragon, and the restoration of the sparkling elixir. Sleep well, dream deeply, and wake refreshed. The magic is real, the peace is within reach, and you are always welcome to return to this place of stories and serenity. Farewell. For now, dear travellers, until the next tale calls you back to the whispering woods and the wonders that dwell within.